Can everyone hear me okay? All right, wonderful. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Uptown United in Uptown Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our 46th Ward Candidate Aldermanic Candidate Forum here at the Preston Bradley Center. We're thrilled to see so many of you out on such a cold night to watch democracy in action, so thank you for being here today. Let's give a round of applause for just being here and participating. Some housekeeping rules before I introduce our moderator. Please, cell phone volume off. I'm gonna look. People's heads should be going down to turn off your cell phones right now. We ask that out of respect to our candidates so that they have time to respond in equity, but also we are recording tonight's program. And so to ensure that the volume is heard of all candidates on a recording, please turn your cell phones off. One other bit of housekeeping, the restroom is located on the 4th floor. You can exit out the back and then go to the left. We have a staff member there directing you, and you can take the elevator to the 4th floor. So with that, I am pleased to introduce our moderator for the evening. Many of you know him. His name is Ruffi. He is not only an accomplished businessman who has had local as well as international business experience at the small and corporate level, but he is the board president of Chicago Market, which is going to be opening its co-op grocery store this year at the corner of Broadway and Wilson. And he is also spearheaded the Chicago Farmers Market, which we have all come to love and enjoy, which will be moving over to Sunnyside this year. We are thrilled to have his insight as a business individual, as a resident, and as a skilled moderator to join us this evening. So please give me a round of applause to introduce Matthew Ruffi. Matthew?
Hello, everyone. I very, very much agree with Sarah that I want to thank you all for being here. It makes a difference when people care about their community. And the alderman or the alderperson that will be a part of this community makes a big difference in where we live. Right? This makes it home. And it warms my heart to see you all out here tonight participating in this, submitting the questions that you did. We received over 70 different questions. I'll get to that in a second. But it just really makes a difference. And then to the candidates, thank you so much for your dedication in this. We know that the alderman role itself is tough, but any sort of election is really, really difficult. So for you to throw your hat in the ring, it's more than just the hat. It's the hat, it's the heart, it's the mind, it's the time, it's the money, it's the trouble with the family. You know, you're bringing the whole family and your whole support system along with this. So thank you very much for doing this on behalf of me and I'm sure the whole community as well. So thank you. Quickly on the logistics for the night. So when we open the question, we're going to open with, and we'll call this spot 1 closest to me just because it makes it easier for me to count. But so we'll start here and we'll do opening statements down to the end. At the very end, when we do closing statements, we'll come the other direction. In between there, we'll kind of alternate so that everyone gets a chance to open a topic and then close out a topic. We do have some lightning round questions, so those will be a little bit of fun. And we'll just, really sit here and enjoy. As Sarah said about the cell phones, and we are going to try to just limit the amount of crowd interaction. I know everyone gets really excited when your candidate says something that you love, and we all want to applaud and support them. I promise at the end of it, we'll give you a chance to jump up and clap and whoop whoop, or whatever anything else that you want to do. But we are going to ask that you try to limit that in between, mainly because that allows us to get to more questions for the candidates. So, with all of that, as I mentioned on the question side, we had more than 70 questions submitted. The good part about that, again, community participation is amazing. The downside to that many questions being sent in is that we can't ask them all, or else we would be here for days. So we did, the Uptown United and the Uptown Chamber staff did an amazing job of taking those questions, categorizing them, distilling them down, and so we're going to ask about 6 or 7 questions to the candidate that did come in and were prompted by community response. So with that, again, I'll remind you that you do have a 2-minute timing on this, so we'll get this started. So Uptown United's mission is to retain thriving businesses, attract new business, build on the unique diversity, and continue to make Uptown a safe and attractive place to live, work, and play. So please take a moment to introduce yourself, but also help us to understand in your opening what, over the next 4 years, is your plan on how to build on Uptown's exciting momentum. And we'll start with you, Shauna.
Good evening. I feel like I'm hidden under the table, so I'm going to stand up. My name is Roushaunda Williams. I've worked the last 20 plus years as a bartender at the historic Palmer House Hilton. I'm a member of Unite Here Local 1, a hospitality union. I also sit on the Illinois AFL-CIO board as an executive vice president, and we represent workers that build your buildings, the first responders, those that transport us and feed us. My advocacy work started over 30 plus years ago in social services. I've worked in many areas of social services. I hold a degree in social services and a minor in law enforcement administration. I love social services because I fell in love with one of my clients, an 8-year-old little boy whom I've adopted. He's 30 years old now. I have 2 sons. My background includes negotiating contracts with big corporations, negotiating benefits, wage increases, I speak out against unfair labor practices, I speak out against safety issues, and I speak out against things like all forms of harassment against the hospitality industry. This is the part of my experience that makes me qualified to build on the current momentum in the ward. Strong negotiations make sure that new businesses can address the needs of the community and get what needs to be able to sustain businesses. The many years of relationships that I've built will ensure that job opportunities come to this ward. In my daily work as a tourist, families ask me all the time, where can I recommend for them to go? So part of my experience and what I do currently to make sure.
That is your 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Angela, same question for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Happy below zero weather, finally, neighbors. My name is Angela Clay, and I am ready to be the next alderperson of this beautiful ward. It is an honor to be on this stage because the 46th ward has been my home my entire life. My family has lived in this community for over 80 years, raising a multi-generational pillar for myself and my family. I am a product of everything that this ward stands on. I grew up in affordable housing. I was able to organize thanks to our great public schools. I'm a product of Joseph Brenneman, where I currently sit on the local school council. I graduated from Uplift Community High School, which is the only high school in the ward. Shout out to the Titans. And I took that beautiful public transportation that we call the Red Line to DePaul every single day and got a degree in public policy. When I think about what an alderman needs to succeed in this role, I think about a few things. I think about them being a resource, right? You have to be a resource to this community in a number of ways. You have to support our small businesses, you have to support our schools, you have to be a buffer for families who actually want to grow and thrive here. I also think about them being an organizer, right? There are so many different points of views in this room alone. And this is just a small percentage of folks in our ward, right? So they have to be an organizer of getting things done. I also think that they need to understand the lived experiences of each one of us because we are so diverse. We have so many different ways of handling situations, and we have a difference in cultures that really make us thrive. I came within 300 votes of the runoff 4 years ago with no money, no campaign structure, just great neighbors. So we're doing it again, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk more, but thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Angela. Kim? And Angela, if you would just slide the switch down so that the mic is on. Thank you.
Good evening. I love our community, and that is why my fiance and I are raising our 5-month-old daughter Alderwoman, I want to help the 46th Ward continue to move forward. We have a thriving theater district that's growing every day and small businesses investing in our community. But the city of Chicago doesn't make it easy for people to live, work, and grow in the 46th Ward. My father was a public school teacher and my mom was a nurse, and they taught me that when something's broken, you have to fix it. And for the past 2 months, I've been going door to door talking to small business owners, and there's a lot we need to fix. We have an archaic process, too much red tape and bureaucracy that's making it difficult for small businesses to thrive in the 46th Ward. I talked to one small business owner who was excited about opening their business last January. They signed the lease for their building, they put in their business license, and it took 10 months for the city of Chicago to approve their license. So 10 months where they were paying rent and they couldn't make a dime for their business. And the city's excuse was, well, we just don't have enough people. We have to fix the red tape. We also have to deal with property taxes. The property tax increases for our small businesses in the ward were double the city average. So as businesses are still trying to figure out how they're going to recover from COVID, we're putting them even further behind. And I'm very excited about what we can do in the ward with our businesses, but we also have to talk about how we live in the ward. We have to deal with affordability crisis so that people can afford to stay in our diverse community. We have to deal with strengthening our social safety net so those with mental health challenges can deal with their problems. And I have a lot of experience to deal with this. I have 22 years of experience in the government, nonprofit, and private sector. I spent 10 years working for Congressman Mike Quigley, and I'm the only candidate who's run a constituent service office for government operations. So I know how to get the job done for our community on day one, and I look forward to serving the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Marianne?
Uptown has experienced substantial growth over the last several years, adding thousands of units of new housing and commercial storefronts. Still, we have more work to do in ensuring both new and old residents and businesses feel safe. We also need to address rising homelessness rates and the quality of our public transportation system. I'm uniquely positioned to lead this work because of my history of community activism. As a member of the Lakeshore Drive Study Task Force, I fought in Uptown to keep Wilson Ramp access open, and in Lakeview to reduce motorcycle noise, expand park access, and protect the tree canopy. On Clarendon Park Advisory Council, we won a years-long battle to save our historic community center, including an over $4 million renovation that will add ADA accessibility. I've spent most of my career working in sustainability. One of the 46 Ward's greatest assets is the lakefront, but the Lakefront Protection Ordinance was last updated in 1973 and is no longer adequate. I was part of a team that worked to prevent an electronic music concert from disrupting the habitat our endangered piping plovers, Monty and Rose, called home. Moving forward, our coastal ward can be a leader in climate change resilience, becoming more energy efficient and serving as a model for dense walkability near transit as we move to greener infrastructure. The biggest opportunity for our ward, however, is something much softer. It's building bridges between 2 points of view that have been heavily polarized. I've participated in progressive organizing and also been president of a block club. I've been both a renter and a homeowner. I've seen both sides of issues and worked with people in our community who have similar and different backgrounds from me, and for those who I agree with and disagree with. When we say we are an Uptown United, I want us to mean we are not just diverse, but inclusive. I'd be honored to have your vote to continue the work that I've already been doing and also do more.
Thank you, Hedge. Michael?
Hello. My name is Michael Cortez. I've lived in Uptown for the past 21 years. I've been buying and selling real estate in the area for the past 23 years. I'll be a strong voice in the city council to get the services we need for the 46th Ward by surrounding myself with knowledgeable, well-informed people and really listening to the voice of the community. Over the next 4 years, I'd like to make the ward safer by increasing the police presence, helping small business obtain license to get up and running sooner, help the homeless get out of the tents with new programs. My vision for the homeless is to turn the existing shelters into live and learn centers with semi-private sleeping rooms, showers, laundry, classrooms to learn a trade, woodworking, learn to cook, learn to save money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I do want to let you know that the candidates did not receive any of these questions ahead of time, so give them a lot of kudos as we ask them and throw some potential curveballs at them. So let's first talk about small business and economic development. And Angela, we'll start with you this time. Uptown United and the Uptown Chamber of Commerce work hand in hand with small businesses to ensure that they remain the backbone of our neighborhoods. With the rise of online shopping, increasing occupancy costs, high property taxes, red tape at City Hall, the list probably goes on and on, owning and operating small businesses in Chicago certainly continues to be a challenge. What is your strategy to support Uptown's business community and encourage economic growth? And please be specific if you can.
Yeah, so at one point, Uptown was home to 50% of our small business owners actually lived in this ward. And that says a lot about the investment that people are making when they are thinking about living here and growing businesses here. What I think that we need is, one, our small businesses need accessibility to the information. A lot of our small businesses during COVID and even after COVID, I was at one today named Salim on Broadway, and he is having a hard time because he doesn't feel like he knows where to get these resources. He doesn't know where to go to get grants. He doesn't know who to actually access this information with, right? That's one thing that the Alderman's office can be a little bit more transparent about. Two, we also need to think about making our commercial space more affordable. Our ward is super vibrant. We have accessibility for people to get off of the train and get spit out into prime real estate, which is also commercial space. We also need to make sure that we are protecting these businesses by making them affordable. Last but not least, we also need to make sure that we are protecting the diversity of the businesses that are moving into our ward. We are home to a large immigrant population that I think we have all benefited from them being in our ward. We need to protect them. That goes hand in hand with making sure that they are getting the resources from the city and also the state level. I think the Alderman's office has done a great job with working with Uptown United and the Chamber with attracting businesses, but we also need to make sure that we're retaining them as well.
Thank you very much. Kim, same question.
So small businesses are the way that many immigrant families create generational wealth. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, the archaic processes that we have to help businesses grow and thrive is putting that in danger, in addition to the property tax problem. I was talking with a restaurant on Broadway a couple days ago, and their property tax bill has been increasing $3,000 every time they get a new property tax bill. And while they don't own their property, this is a part of their rent, and they're seeing rent increases time after time again, and they're not going to be able to sustain it. We have to deal with the property tax crisis. We also have to deal with the public safety issue that's impacting our retail stores. A lot of brick and mortar stores are closing locations because of organized retail crime. What's happening is that organized retail crime syndicates are preying upon victims of human trafficking, our kids, those with substance abuse disorders, and having them go into retail stores to sell merchandise that is then being fenced online on Amazon, Facebook, Etsy, and marketplaces online. I've passed legislation in 3 states to help combat this, to require online marketplaces to verify the identity of their seller, which will help crack down on this crime, and will make it so that our small businesses no longer have to compete with counterfeit goods online that have been stolen, and also helps protect the merchandise in their store. These 3 bills I helped pass have led to a federal bill that was recently signed by Biden that's going to lead to reform nationwide. So in addition to the issues I mentioned earlier about dealing with archaic bureaucracy in the city of Chicago, dealing with the property tax crisis, we have to work on the public safety issue as well, so small business employees feel safe coming to work, and so their customers also feel safe when they're shopping in the store. As Alderwoman, I will focus every day on our small businesses, helping them grow and thrive in our community, because they're part of what makes the ward so incredibly special.
Thank you, Kim. Marianne?
When it comes to small businesses, I think we have 2 main goals. One is to help sustain the small businesses that are already in the ward, and the next is to attract new businesses to fill our commercial storefronts. One of the ways that we can help sustain small businesses is through better marketing efforts. We have a lot of African businesses on Wilson, and I think we could create a similar branded business district that there is on Argyle with many Asian businesses on Wilson and drive more people into our community that way. We should also be helping small businesses directly by creating a small business resource center to help with those challenges of zoning, permitting, licensing, and hiring union labor for repairs. Finally, we should incorporate our youth into our business community by holding job fairs for teens who live in the area, students attending Uplift and Truman College, and I know that local businesses have already expressed an interest in such a program to have local youth working there in summer jobs and temporary jobs. It's really unfortunate that we've only spent 3.7% of the pandemic ARPA funds on small businesses and workforce support as of September, and we can use this investment in order to draw more businesses into our neighborhood and have a more thriving commercial district.
Thank you very much. Michael?
I don't have a long paragraph like that to go on, but what I have learned, the licensing can be improved. I think we could help the new businesses get into these businesses and help them get these licenses. I know one of the problems, I know somebody with a business and the city has written them a ticket, and it's basically just like, you did this, pay this kind of a fine, when they really weren't responsible for what happened. So I think the city needs to look into each problem individually and just not use it like a cash station to be working against these smaller businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Roushaunda.
I'm going to try to speak faster because I have so much to say. The first thing we should be paying attention to is making sure we're maintaining diversity in the ward. That's very important. We also need like mentoring services, right, for small businesses, because a business needs to know what thrives in the community, what things work, what things haven't worked in the past. And that's a robust process for letting people know what our community needs. We also need to make sure that we're promoting businesses. This, through some type of concierge service. I promote this area all the time at work. I send folks to places like the Green Mill, our theaters. I make sure that people know what this area and what this ward has to offer. We also need to make sure that our businesses are kept safe. So we could have some, security, making sure we're rolling around the businesses, making sure that thefts aren't occurring in our business. We also need funding alternatives, right? With funding alternatives, businesses will be able to thrive. Because if there's a pot here of a funding alternative where a business can say, hey, I need a small loan, can you help me out? That'll be available for them. We also need to make sure that we are spotlighting our businesses in our ward. And that can come through the alderman's office, through the website, through newsletters, through emails, but we need to make sure that we are comprehensively addressing how we keep our businesses in this ward sustainable.
Thank you very much. So Kim, for the next question, we'll start with you. We're going to talk about planning. So Uptown United is engaged in many catalytic studies and neighborhood planning activities that have helped to support small businesses, facilitate development, and improve the quality of life for Uptown residents and businesses alike. One of the more notable ones would be the Central Uptown Plan, and most recently, United explored the new Equitable Transit-Oriented Development Ordinance, which is a tongue twister, and how it might be implemented in the future. So as alderperson, what are the top 3 planning initiatives that you would like to see happen in the 46th Ward?
So I think an important part of the planning process needs to be an issue that was raised earlier, is are we growing a community, growing a neighborhood where those who work in the neighborhood can afford to stay in the neighborhood? That needs to be a part of the process. We want to build a neighborhood where we can walk to stores, where individuals who work in those stores can live in the community and afford to stay in the community, and that has to be part of the planning process. Also, part of the planning process needs to be looking at how we're dealing with transit. How are we dealing with safe streets? You know, we had one child killed in the 46th ward last summer who fell off their bicycle, and another child killed in our neighboring ward. And we're not doing enough from a planning perspective to make sure we have safe streets for pedestrians, for cyclists, for those on scooters, and for those wanting to use alternative methods of transportation. So I want to ensure that would be one of my top priorities as it comes to planning. Second of all, from a planning perspective, we have to continue to look at affordability. This is crucial. And this isn't just dealing with how we're building housing, which I will make sure that we have 20% affordable units in any development in the ward as Alderwoman, but also a part of our planning process, we need to look at how we're dealing with naturally occurring affordable housing. The majority of housing in the city of Chicago is 2 flats, 3 flats, 6 flats. The naturally occurring affordable housing that maybe one landlord lives in one unit and rents out the others for affordable prices. But oftentimes, because of the property tax crisis, because oftentimes we can't afford code repairs, there's not enough funding in the porch repair program or the roof repair program, this naturally occurring affordable housing disappears. And we need to have a conversation to have that be a part of our planning process. As Alderwoman, I would work with the City of Chicago to create more incentives and more funding mechanisms for us to help protect this type of housing.
Thank you, Kim. Marianne?
Asked for 3 planning initiatives, so I'm going to say walkability, 1, transit accessibility, and then affordability. So walkability means a lot of things. It means the presence of outdoor dining, noise level, different landscape features, preserving historic structures, non-rectangular silhouettes, and it also means walkability on having these wide sidewalks. Our hashtag Plow the Sidewalks neighbor is here. Making the city sidewalks plowed as a city service, I think, is really important. It would also allow us to use different materials for de-icing. We could use beet juice like we use on the streets. It's got a lot less corrosion than rock salt. When we think about transit accessibility, that is building those equitable transit-oriented developments to create a dense, walkable neighborhood, and also investing in safety in our transit system so that people have more faith in the transit, more reliability, increased ridership on our CTA system. And then finally, affordability. We talk about affordable housing. Housing is really a mosaic. We have voucher housing that we usually think about as affordable housing. We have market rate housing, and then we have homeownership, and homeowners are enduring property tax increases. Affordability has to be across the whole spectrum of housing, and it also has to be affordable to rent a commercial space for a business. I spoke with the owner recently of the Tesla restaurant on Wilson. He's wanted to expand for many years and is having trouble finding a larger space in the ward that he can afford, and often sells out his restaurant on weekend evenings. So those would be the 3 values where I would lead with planning: walkability, transit accessibility, and then affordability.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Michael?
I don't have a lot on this one, but I really believe that the train system is a main problem. While we're bringing it up with the safety, we don't have the reliability, and we have people just stop taking the train because the safety and the influx of the schedule. I really don't have a lot of other things on the subject. I apologize, but it's my first time out here, so I'm doing the best I can.
That's fair. Thank you very much. Roushaunda, we'll hand back over your way.
So, for urban planning, affordability, I think, is something that's important to everyone that's sitting on this stage. But there are other things we can consider. Like, what ways can we increase the property value for our residents? The ways that we can do that is by fixing our train stations, right? You have a train station over on Sheridan. If we were to put money behind that train station, it would increase the value of some of the condos and the homes in that area. So that's one thing I would like to consider about urban planning. Is the community thriving for families? Does it have a positive impact on our families? Do we have enough daycares, after-school programs, family activities? These are all things that are considered that need to be taken into consideration when we're talking about urban planning. And third, we need to make sure we're focusing on safety. We have to make sure that, and safety in all kinds of ways. Are our sidewalks good for people that are in wheelchairs? Do we have enough lighting on the street? Are our sidewalks wide enough? All of these things have to be considered when we are talking about urban planning, because this is exactly what we need to bring our community together and make sure it is safe and viable for everyone.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Okay, so when I'm thinking about 3 initiatives, I think it's really 3 umbrellas that I've been working on for decades. The first one is environmental. We need to be protecting the green space that we have here in the ward. Because we are a stone's throw away from this beautiful lake that we just really call a swimming pool, we need to protect it. We need to make sure that we are being inclusive and trying to reach all of our neighbors on this subject. Secondly, everybody is going to talk about affordability, but this is the real thing about affordability. It's not just low-income housing that we need. We need to make sure that we are building housing that our elders can also afford. A lot of our elders are on a fixed income and they are working with minimal resources every single month. They deserve to be in this community and grow with us as well. We need to be looking at different types of housing as well. Co-ops. I am a big fan of co-ops, you all. I think that we have an opportunity to expand on that model here in the 46th Ward. I also think that we need to be looking at the housing that we are building. I recently became a mommy at the height of COVID, and I'm raising my baby in a 2-bedroom that is costing my family $1,628 a month. I know that I'm fortunate to be able to afford that, but that is not the case for a lot of our families in this ward. Last but not least, I am all for our protected bike lanes. I think that we really have an opportunity here to be pillars in this city and move our public transportation and our other models of transportation forward. I have had the opportunity of working with folks all across this community to make sure that each one of these areas are being actively worked on, and I can't wait to expand it as we get into this next season of Alderman.
Thank you very much. So I've heard throughout a lot of these answers, we'll talk about diversity of the board. And so, Marianne, we'll start with you on this, but let's talk about constituent services and the diversity of that. So part of an alderperson's job is to assist residents and businesses with a wide array of requests. Those requests are probably wildly different person to person, and they're different area to area, even within the ward. So with a ward as large and diverse as ours, how will you balance the needs of progress and development while building trust with all, which would include non-native English-speaking neighbors and businesses, without jeopardizing that diversity and the diverse needs of your constituents? That was a long question, I know. There's a lot of scribbling on that one, yeah.
Sorry, Matt, I was still taking notes.
Totally understand, that's on me.
I want to start with the story of constituent services, and a lot of the people in the story are sitting in this room right now. So when I was president of Lakeside Area Neighbors Association, and it was probably 2018, we had an issue where the trash cans in Arai Park, which is behind Oakland High School, weren't getting emptied. And we went through a really long process figuring out who was responsible for emptying these trash cans. We learned that it wasn't streets and sanitation. We thought Arai Park was part of the Chicago Park District. And through a long adventure in FOIA, we learned that it was actually belonged to Chicago Public Schools, and it was exchanged in a handshake deal. Then we went to Uplift and asked about the frequency of emptying the trash cans. And my neighbor, Warren, took the time to take a photograph every day of the trash cans to monitor the progress, and so that we could communicate back that they indeed were not being emptied, and it was pretty consistent day to day. This was around the time that CPS privatized their janitorial services. They moved over to Aramark, so then we began addressing Aramark about this issue. About 6 months later, the trash cans were emptied regularly on a weekly basis. This took an effort of about 10 volunteers in our block club and a really long period of time. And that's not the way constituent services should be done in the ward. I think you deserve a 48-hour turnaround on a request and regular updates about when something will be done. And another friend on Beacon who waited between April and November to get a pothole filled in her alley. Requests need to have accommodations for different populations. That means language translation services ready at the office, and also people have different comfort levels with technology, as well as different levels of access to Wi-Fi. So we should be able to respond to constituent services both over email and computer platforms, phone, and in person. I think the ward newsletter, which is a great way to communicate, should also have a physical copy for those who are not comfortable using computers.
Thank you, Marianne. Michael?
I think this is one of the most important part of being an alderman is taking care of the ward and making sure everyone is taken care of. And I think you do that by dedicating a staff member just for that purpose, as well as growing a relationship with the superintendent, who's going to be taking care of most of those things, and really come together and pay attention to what the community is asking for. I want to be one of the aldermen. When there's a problem, I not only get the call at the office, but I come and knock on the door and actually see the problem. That's the alderman I want to be.
Thank you, Michael. Roushaunda?
So for a long time, over 20 years in my job, what I've done is problem solve. So you have to be a great problem solver to be able to get constituent services. The other thing that I have in my personal phone directory, I have people that speak over 25 different languages. I've built these relationships over the years. The great thing about being a part of my union and working in the Palmer House Hilton is we have workers there from all over the world. And I've built such great relationships that they wouldn't hesitate to lend me an interpretation if I needed it. We also have to make sure that people have access to computers, to websites. We need to make sure that they're informed on where the local libraries are and that someone is there to help them. We need to have, throughout the ward, places where people can go to access the information they need. And we need to have a robust open door policy to make sure that folks can come in and get help, know how to do it, and that's what an alderman should be able to do for its ward.
And the mic's on this time.
Yeah, it's on this time. Constituent services. When I think about constituent services, I think about everything that we need to survive this ward, right? We need to make sure that our trash is picked up. We need to make sure that our schools are being properly funded. We need to make sure that we have an alderperson who is also taking these services to people. I think that, one, as an alderman's office, we need to make sure that our constituent services is being translated. There's an accessibility issue that we are having here in the 46th Ward that we could really be tapping into way more neighbors if only we used our translation services that we have right here in the ward. I also think that we need to continue to build on the strengths that we have. Look, we have amazing schools, churches, private businesses. I think we need to build better relationships with them so that they can also tell us what are they hearing? What are the needs of their personal constituents as well? Last but not least, the alderman's office has to be open and accessible, you all. Everything cannot just be digital. You need to be able to walk into your alderman's office, make a request, and have somebody follow through with that. That's what I want to bring to this seat.
Thank you, Kim.
So I'm going to answer the second part of your question first about accessibility. So currently in my role with Walgreens, during the height of the COVID epidemic, I opened COVID testing, some of the first COVID testing locations in the entire country. And I launched vaccine efforts in 8 states. And one of the most important parts of that work was accessibility. I was working diligently to make sure that we had accessibility to vaccines in underserved communities, and also making sure that all of our vaccine materials were in other languages, and also making sure that any ID requirements necessary didn't dissuade anyone who's undocumented from being a part of the process and getting protected as well. So it's an issue I focus on in my current job. As it relates to constituent services, this is an issue where I have a lot of experience in my prior job. I spent 8 years working for Mike Quigley on the county side, 2 years working on the federal side, running constituent service operations. I've helped seniors who've called me crying, worrying about losing their home because of their property tax bills. Veterans who have worried about losing their benefits or not even having access to the benefits they need. This is an issue that I've spent a lot of time in. And what's really important about constituent services is being accessible and being available in the way people need you to be available. In addition to knocking on your doors while running for alderman, I want to keep knocking on your doors while alderman and hear what you think about what's going on in the ward. I'm going to do regular walks throughout the ward with block club members and neighborhood organizations to find out what's going on. But I also want to come to where you are. For Congressman Quigley, I created a program called Undercover Congressman. He named it, I didn't. But what we would do is we would go work in businesses across the district so we could hear from employees, learn what their challenges are, and also have conversations with individuals who might not feel comfortable coming into a constituent service office. So that was one of the highlights of my time there, and it's been actually replicated in district offices across the country. And I would do a similar thing as alderman.
Thank you very much. Throughout a few of your questions, I've heard you all talk about housing and availability and how do we keep people together, how do we keep them in the ward. And so, and Michael, we'll start with you on this one. But we often discuss affordable housing only as it relates to Uptown, or only as it relates to this ward. But really, affordable housing is a citywide and even national issue. So while the city is tackling the issue through multi-pronged initiatives, including enhanced ARO, the new ETOD, Connected Communities Ordinance, accessory dwelling units, ADUs, as alderperson, how will you balance the needs for continued development and investment in Uptown to bring more opportunities and amenities to the area, with the need to make sure that Uptown, and by extension the city as a whole, are affordable to all that wish to live here? And Michael, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the most important thing is to keep the 20% of new developments, and just to promote the area, making it more affordable for builders to come in. And kind of lost for words with that one, and I apologize.
No apology needed. Thank you very much. Roushaunda?
Look, we need to create good jobs, right? That should be one of the things that we are paying attention to. Because not being able to afford where you are living starts way before people are homeless. We need to make sure that we are utilizing our Truman colleges, our middle colleges, to make sure that we are telling folks about apprenticeship programs and other jobs where they can make a livable wage and be able to live in the community. We definitely have to focus on our homeless, but we also have to make sure that we are catching more people from being homeless, or in 4 years we'll be having this exact same conversation. We also need to make sure that we are paying attention to what types of developments are coming in and their impact in the community. There are a lot of developments that are priced out. I almost lost my place during COVID. I was almost homeless. I've been working since I was 14 years old. And 2 years ago, I almost lost my place. So we need to make sure that we are delving in real deep and understanding what people need. I also always think about this house called the Sankofa House and what they did for that house. This is a 56-unit apartment building, and what they did there is they created everything from from studios to 3-bedroom apartments. And these people created a community of their own, and they've been able to afford where they live based on this community process.
Thank you, Roushaunda. Angela?
Oh yeah, let's talk about housing. Okay, so everything in this community begins and ends with housing, you all. We all need a safe roof over our heads. We all need to make sure that our children are thriving and growing in safe spaces. When we are thinking about development in this ward, we need to think about it as development without displacement. The community and culture that has always been here and will continue to be here thrive off of the affordability aspect that we have in the 46th ward. I grew up in affordable housing, and when I left my beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, I was paying $1,300. Affordable doesn't mean that it is free, it means that it is affordable to you. Secondly, we need to make sure that, again, we are building housing stock that is going to make sure that our ward thrives. We are a community of elementary schools. Families rely on affordable housing. We need to make sure that not only are we giving our families affordable housing, but we are also giving them access to great health care, that we are giving them access to great schools. All of that relies on the affordability around it. Last but not least, we need to make sure that we are developing equitably and with everyone at this table. A lot of the developments that I've talked to with my neighbors on the doors are about them feeling like they have not been included in the process. We have a say in how we want to build our community, and we have been left out of that process for a very long time now. Last but not least, we really need to make sure that we have someone in City Council who is going to pass the treatment not trauma ordinance, making sure that we are putting resources into our mental health, and that we are also going to pass the Bring Chicago Home ordinance that will give our houseless neighbors a clear revenue stream to get off the street.
Thank you. Kim?
So I agree, Matthew, that this isn't a problem that's unique to the 46th ward or the city of Chicago. And in order to deal with affordable housing, in addition to the issues that I raised earlier, we have to look at this systemically. We have to look at every unit of government and how can we all work together to deal with this problem. I was up at a church this weekend. I was talking to someone afterwards, and they let me know that they live in a CHA building, or sorry, a HUD building in the ward. And a year ago, they were paying $300 a month in rent for their 1 bedroom, and that's what they could afford. Well, HUD has not updated the income guidelines in decades, and they got a new job. They came out of retirement so they could have more income. And in 1 year, their rent went from $300 a month to $1,300 a month, a $1,000 a month increase because they decided to get a job. And not only did the increase occur, there was absolutely no grace period. So this happened with their next rent payment. We need to look with our federal partners to see how we're dealing with HUD guidelines and make changes where necessary so that we can deal with that for affordable housing as well. We really, though, have to have a conversation about how we're helping the unhoused. And this is an issue that's very personal to me. For the last 30 years, I've been trying to help my brother who is chronically unhoused and suffers from mental illness. And he will not let me help him, but I promised my parents before they died I would help change the system for other people. We don't have enough short-term solutions, and we don't have enough long-term housing solutions to help those who are going through this crisis. Our shelter systems don't have enough dignity, they are not safe, there are often health issues, safety concerns, and if individuals are choosing to live in a tent in Chicago winter instead of going to a shelter, that should tell us something about our shelter system. We also have 20 to 30% less shelter beds than we did before the pandemic, and there are no plans to give it back to its original rate. So as we talk about affordable housing, it's not just about rents, but it's helping individuals get into homes in the first place, and I'm committed to both of those as alderman.
Thank you. Marianne?
When we think about expanding access to affordable housing, we have a lot of different types of affordable housing with income restrictions. For Clift Housing, Chicago Low Income Housing Trust Fund, you can only make 0 to 35% of the average median income. When a developer builds with on-site affordable, that's 40 to 60%. These income limitations are really restrictive, and it's something that City Council has the power to change. to make it easier to qualify, and then also to make it easier to go through this application process to get into affordable housing. When we think about building more affordable housing in the ward, I think it's really important that we do it with wraparound services. This will help advance economic upward mobility. Uptown is the neighborhood with the highest number of cross-class friendships, so it's really important that we have affordable housing in our ward to maintain the character of Uptown. A lot of my fellow candidates up here have addressed homelessness in this question as well. Not only are we looking at thinking about more affordable housing and keeping housing affordable at every level of housing, but we need to think about our resources for shelters in our neighborhood. We lost a shelter in the basement of this building, the Northside Housing Men's Shelter. They attempted to relocate to Rogers Park, had a really hard time relocating there, and we actually have infrastructure for that could be a single men's shelter in the Institute for Cultural Affairs building across the street, and I know that there's interest in opening one there. All they need is a zoning change. So where we have the opportunity to add more resources on the north side, it's our responsibility to be doing that, to maintain the character of our ward, but also to make sure that everybody has a space throughout the north side and access to the services that they are accustomed to attending.
Thank you, Marianne. So Roushaunda, we'll come back over here for you to start this one. And we're going to talk about zoning and development. So zoning and development are big topics in any neighborhood. Currently, aldermen are given the prerogative over zoning in their ward, and each alderman has a different way of reviewing and approving zoning requests. One example, Uptown United's Development Partners Committee is a way that many neighborhood organizations try to provide feedback to proposed projects in Uptown. But what would be your process for reviewing and approving zoning changes if you were alderperson?
I think it's important to have a transparent, robust process. We have to make sure that any development has a positive impact on the community. And that's, what does the community need? Obviously, this ward is large. You have Uptown, Wayner Park, and parts of Lakeview. They all have different needs. People have different understandings of what those communities are about and what will make their property values go higher, what it takes for their community to exist, to thrive. And so when looking at the process, we have to make sure that we're bringing the stakeholders in the room to vote, to have conversations, to be in the room talking about what they expect to come in their community. And we need to make sure that we're paying attention to what kind of development is happening in our areas.
Thank you. Angela?
Thank you. So when we're thinking about zoning and development, right, first of all, we need to be communicating with our neighbors about what is the zoning process. A lot of us still don't even understand what it really entails to go into a change in zoning, a downgrade. First of all, we need the basics, education. Secondly, we need to make sure that our zoning process is transparent. Right now, a lot of our neighbors do not feel, again, like they know half of what's going on in our ward because it hasn't been transparent enough. We have a major discussion that's been going around for almost 10 years now around the Redefine the Drive of Lakeshore Drive. Many of us in this room have never even been tapped in or activated to give our feedback in the last 10 years. Last but not least, I want to make sure that our zoning and development process is inclusive. It needs to be more inclusive of small business owners, of churches in the area, of schools, because they will be impacted by these changes as well. So those are the things that I think as an alderman, again, it's not rocket science that we want to be included in this process. A lot of our neighbors just don't know how to get included in this process. And again, we need to make sure that we are taking this information to them.
Thank you, Angela. Kim?
If elected, I'm never going to come to you and tell you what I think our neighborhood should be. Never tell you what the development should be. I want to work with all of you each and every day to build the neighborhood that you want for this community. And that means having a very open and very transparent community development and zoning process. We have one of the most diverse wards in the entire country, but if you look at our zoning committee, it doesn't really look like the ward. A lot of people feel like their voices aren't heard, a lot of our immigrant communities' voices are not heard, and they're not able to participate in the process. So first, I would change the system and make sure that more voices are included. Another challenge is a lot of the primary ways for people to participate in the community zoning process is through their block club. And a lot of communities don't necessarily participate in their block club or have access to block club votes, which are often online. If they don't have access to technology, don't have access to the internet, don't feel comfortable with technology, they're automatically going to be excluded from that process. I was at one block club meeting recently, and they were talking to some community members about how can we get more people in various buildings involved, especially those from immigrant communities. And the challenge is a lot of the management companies won't allow block clubs to post meeting notices in the building. So a lot of individuals simply don't know about the process and how to engage in the meetings. So that's one thing that I would change as Alderwoman. I would work with the buildings, work with management to make sure that all residents of the 46th Ward have access to this information, have access to know how to participate, so we can have the open, transparent community building process that we all want and deserve.
Thank you very much. Marianne?
So for those unfamiliar with the current process that we use for zoning and development changes, it's a group of about 40 people. It's one representative from each of the 14 to 16 block clubs, as well as some specific representatives from big high-rises in Lakeview, and a panel of experts that the alderman has selected in different areas like real estate and sustainability. When we vote on a zoning change, and I have participated in zoning and development committee meetings in the 46th Ward, everybody has equal weight. And that's not okay, because when a development happens in an area, there are some people who experience the benefits or the burdens in a more extreme way. When we had a development go in at 4600 North Marine Drive near Weiss Hospital and the Lakeside Area Neighbors Association, we had an equivalent vote on development in our boundaries as the East Lakeview neighbors did. So I think we need to think about who is going to experience the consequences of these developments more harshly and prioritize their thoughts instead of having an equivalent vote by each block club across the ward. It's really difficult to put the responsibility on the block club to pull inclusive community feedback. We made a lot of efforts in Atlanta to do this. We added voting boxes during the pandemic with a paper option to respond. But at the end of the day, block club participants are volunteers, and I think it's the alderman's responsibility to go directly to the community members who are most impacted by the zoning change to have an equitable feedback process. And to think about the big picture demand for what the ward really needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael?
All right, I have a very simple, form the committees with the people from the communities and work it out that way. To me, it doesn't have to be much more than that. And of course, the block clubs could be involved, but I think with the right committee, watching over it and being transparent would work. So that would be my answer.
Thank you very much. Angela, we'll start the next one with you. And it was actually something I believe that you said in this last answer. You talked about education. So enrollment at Chicago Public Schools continues to decline. I believe it's its 11th straight year. Uptown United and the Uptown Chamber strive to build strong relationships with their schools through targeted programming and partnerships with neighborhood businesses and organizations. What steps would you take as alderperson to spark increased enrollment in all of our neighborhood schools?
All right, let's talk about this ecosystem, you all, that is our public schools. Our public schools rely on a few things. As a product of our public schools right here in the ward, I'm speaking from experience, and I just became a mommy, so I'm speaking from fear, okay? I think that as alderperson, one, we need to make sure that Uplift Community High School, which is an amazing sustainability high school, you all, gets the funding that it needs in the form of making sure that it is our neighborhood high school. 17 years ago, when that amazing high school opened its doors, it was promised by CPS that it would be the dedicated high school of the 46th Ward, and that has not happened yet. The time is now. It has amazing resources in there. It is a pillar for our community. They are a sustainable community school, you all. That means that it's your school. Walk in there, see the services that they provide. They're not just for the students, they're for the entire community. Secondly, we need to make sure that our young people are feeling safe to go to these schools in their communities. CPS has failed our children on so many levels because they have not invested in their longevity. They are sending them to schools, not learning about themselves. The culture and the environment there is not conducive for them to thrive. We need to make sure that we are supporting our teachers. They are the backbones of these schools and of our communities as well. They need access to great health care. They are fighting right now just to get paid, extended paid time off for when they have children, right? This was something that the mayor promised them and then reneged on. That can't happen. Secondly, we need to be making sure that our families are communicating with each other. Children all across this ward need access to the same things. They need access to safe spaces after school. Their families need access to great public transportation. All of these things make up the ecosystem that we need to protect our schools on.
Thank you very much. Kim?
So my father was a public school teacher for over 30 years, so improving our public schools is a very important issue to me. There's two things we need to deal with our public schools: equality and making sure everyone is ready to learn. Quality comes down to funding. We have a system in the state of Illinois where what zip code you're born in and what zip code you live in determines the quality of your education, and that is completely unacceptable. To compound this program, the Chicago Public Schools did not follow the state funding guidelines, which is only on a per pupil basis, which is supposed to be on a need basis, in which the neediest schools are supposed to get more resources. The Chicago Public Schools just does it on a per pupil basis. If our schools don't have the resources that they need, they're not going to be able to thrive, and more parents are going to pull their kids out of our schools. When we talk about education, though, we also have to talk about making sure our kids are ready to learn when they come to school. 50% of a child's development occurs before the age of 3. And we do not have enough money in the city of Chicago for the pre-K programs that we need and early childhood education to make sure our kids come to school ready to learn. We also can't ignore the fact that whether or not a child comes to school hungry, whether or not a child comes to school and is worried if they're going to have somewhere to sleep at night, we have to know that that impacts the quality of their education. A lot of our shelters in the city of Chicago require that you stand in line all day to try and get another bed. What are we doing for our families if individuals who are worried about whether or not they have a bed that night, how are they going to be focused on their education in the classroom if they're hungry, they have no home, or they're worried about their parents' employment? As Alderwoman, I would focus on working with the state to improve the funding formula and also do what I can to increase funding for pre-K and early childhood development so our children can come to school ready to learn.
Thank you, Kim. Marianne?
Restoring faith in our public school system comes down to increasing the quality of the schools so that parents will want to send their kids to schools in our area. We have seen declining enrollments, especially in a couple schools in the 46th Ward in Uplift and Courtney. Some of the things I think we could do to increase the quality of the school are make sure that we have adequate resourcing in terms of health and mental health, putting a dedicated nurse and social worker in every public school, recruiting and maintaining CPS staff, and resourcing schools adequately. The per pupil funding formula that CPS was based on, it is really detrimental to our students. If we were to convert Uplift, which is a selected enrollment high school, into a neighborhood school today, I think a lot of people would be upset who send their kids to SEND right now because it scores much higher in CPS. It's not the student's job to increase the quality of the school by changing the enrollment numbers. It's the school's job to raise the quality to attract the students in. I also would like to see schools used as community hubs. Right now we have a few different areas that are proving to be community hubs in the 46th Ward. One is the new Chicago Market. And another example is the Sunnyside Mall. These are areas where neighbors have gathered together, built community, built relationships, and I would love to see schools also serve as those types of community hubs where not only could students, parents, and teachers come, but also non-parents, small businesses, and other community members.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, I think you need to work closely with the principals, and I think you need to help them raise money for the schools. There's all kinds of ways to do that. And also working with the local city council. One thing I would really like to see come back into the school, I don't know if who remembers officer friendly, I think that's something we're missing out on that could be brought back into the schools to make a full circle around with crime and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And Roushaunda?
You know, I think we can all speculate as to what schools need, right? But we have to figure out why is enrollment declining at our schools. We don't know. And we won't know unless we talk to teachers. We will not know unless we talk to parents. We won't know unless we talk to the students. So we have to make sure that we are having dialogue with these three parties. We need to check and see if funding is an issue. We need to make sure our children are being competitively educated. We also need to make sure that the families have support in getting their kids to school, paying for books, having nutritious lunches. All of these things we need to delve into and start to pull back the layers. Because at the end of the day, none of us really know because we're not having a conversation. So that's what our focus needs to be. And then we will start to get the answers that we need to make sure that we can increase enrollment, that our children are getting educations that they're proud of, and that they have to be able to go from elementary school to middle school to colleges and have great jobs when they get out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kim, we'll start with you for the next question. And I will tell you, when we received all the questions from the community that submitted, and frankly, I've had the pleasure of sitting and watching you at some other forums, all of you, it seems like this is a topic that we hear over and over again, and it's around transportation and mobility. So it's obvious that many of our neighbors are concerned with safety of all forms of mobility, whether that's walking, bikes, CTA, buses. So what policies and practices do you support to improve mobility and safety for all of those, pedestrians, cyclists, buses, CTA riders?
So there's a couple things we need to tackle with transportation. First of all, is an issue that I referenced earlier about bike and pedestrian safety and the tragic loss we had of little children on their bikes. We have to have more protected bike lanes throughout the city and throughout the ward so that individuals can feel safe biking to work, biking for recreation, biking to visit their family. You know, I've done 4 triathlons and I don't feel safe biking on city streets. It just takes one person driving their car, looking down at their phone to hit someone and can end a life. We need to do more to protect non-car transportation in the city. We also have to improve our public transit. People are dramatically impacted by ghost buses. They don't feel safe in the CTA, and that's making ridership decline, which is bringing revenues down and creating a perfect storm of unsafe conditions where we can't afford improvements. There is a complete lack of accountability between the City Council and the CTA, and as Alderwoman, I would demand that we have safer trains, including unarmed conductors, public safety officers in areas where there's a lot of crime, and helping deal with the unsanitary conditions on the train. We also have to deal with the ghost buses. People are being late to work. People could lose their jobs because they're not able to get to work on time. The CTA's solution to this problem was creating brand new shifts for all the CTA workers, where individuals who have had a traditional shift of 9 to 5 for decades are now having to go to work at 3 in the morning, completely change their lives, and possibly work in areas where they don't feel safe. The CTA's response to dealing with the ghost bus problem is completely unacceptable. Transportation, we also have to talk about Lakeshore Drive. The Redefine the Drive process is so car-centric, and it's so opaque. The more we talk about making Lakeshore Drive easier and faster, it's just gonna bring more cars and more traffic to the area. And then what are we gonna do 30, 40 years from now? Saying, oh, we need to widen it again because now we have more cars? It's all about induced demand. We need to make sure that any proposals for the drive have more proposals that really prioritize public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Marianne?
Okay, I'll start with CTA. This all comes down to staffing. CTA is incredibly short-staffed now. 300 part-time workers were converted to full-time, and we're not seeing the reliability or the safety on the CTA that we're used to in the before times, in the pre-pandemic times. Bringing CTA back to pre-2020 staffing levels can be done by partnering with city colleges, UIC, and others to create job placement programs to better recruit a group of workers to stay at CTA. I also think we should bring back the unarmed conductors that were eliminated in 1998, not only to enforce safety, but also to just create an atmosphere of respect on the CTA. I think following the rules creates a higher quality of transit for everybody who's riding. Having CPS students be allowed to ride free year-round will also increase ridership on the CTA. When we think about pedestrian and bicycle safety, one of the plans that I'm a fan of is Bike Grid Now. It's 450 miles of protected bike lanes throughout the city. When we think about our ward, I think we have the opportunity to add them down the full length of Broadway, on Lawrence, which is actually the US bike route, and possibly on Addison and on Buena to connect into the tunnel to the Lakefront Trail. The signage on the Lakefront Trail, which was done as part of the Redefine the Drive project, is really inadequate. Normally we prioritize first pedestrians, then cyclists, then vehicles. And on the Lakefront Trail, you'll see areas where you as a pedestrian are being asked to look for cyclists up, and the look is painted on the pavement. This is the wrong order. The pedestrians should be prioritized over the cyclists, so this is another opportunity that we have to improve pedestrian safety in our area.
Thank you, Marianne. Michael?
There's two problems with the CTA. They're not on time, and there's not enough safety. I felt so safe when they used to have the K9 units and armed police on board, and you would feel safe when you're riding those trains. There's barely any of that anymore. That all needs to come back. They need to fix the scheduling, and then they need to get the safety back. I'm a bike rider myself, and what I really, I'm for the bike lanes, but there are an awful lot of bike lanes. I think it should be main thoroughfares, the streets that could fit bike lanes, and then have maps that actually show the bicyclist where the routes could be, where they can get from A to B, instead of every street having a bike lane.
Thank you, Michael. Roushaunda?
Well, I understand that the CTA is short of staff right now, right? And that can be challenging. But we have to hold CTA accountable. I take every opportunity I can when my son is in the room to embarrass him, because that's what mothers do. If my son can order a pizza and track it from the restaurant to his mouth, we should be able to do a better job at being able to track our buses. Also, a good campaign can be so beneficial in so many ways. A good incentivized campaign for biking, but we have to make sure it's safe, because we don't want another child or anyone to get hurt because of bike lanes not being safe and drivers not paying attention. We need to take our opportunities to run a great campaign for biking. I don't know, it can look something like, if you bike here, I'll give you 10% off of your ice cream. We can get a community involvement with doing something like that. I mean, think about the health benefits. We can do something in our ward. Hey, we're gonna shut down Broadway, and we're gonna have a bike to Broadway. There are a lot of things that we can start to think about and ways to engage the community. And I invite us all to start thinking about that right now. Let's implement some things that we want to work for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about CTA, the first thing that comes to everyone's minds is why is it now our mental health hospitals and our shelters? When we're talking about safety, when we are talking about us not feeling like we are protected on our public transportation, we first need to look at why are people sleeping on the trains? We don't have enough access to affordable homes, to shelter beds, and to safe spaces for people to actually grow. Secondly, we need to invest in our mental health, you all. We all just went through a very tough time together, enclosed albeit, but together. A lot of us that are coming out of this need more resources for our mental health. That goes for our neighbors who are riding public transportation because they don't have a mental health facility in their communities that they can go and get the proper treatment from. Secondly, we also need the bike rig. I'm a biker. I have not put my baby on the back of my bike at all. We had a great bike tour as a part of our campaign where we biked this entire ward. And people saw how accessible it was, but it was not safe. We had to actually have bike safety people in front and back to get us through the entire ward. Last but not least, we need to fix the Sheridan Red Line stop. Okay, it is a death trap for a lot of our neighbors. It is steep, it is extremely slippery in the wintertime, and it's not accessible for a lot of our neighbors. I've had numerous conversations with our neighbors on doors where they are telling me that they have to get off at Wilson, wait for the bus on Wilson, just to travel back to where they would have gotten off at Sheridan. This is an issue that has been in our ward for so long, and I really want to tackle this.
Thank you. So, Marianne, we'll start with you on this. Many of you in that last answer talked about safety. And so let's talk, neighborhood safety is obviously one of the top concerns for residents and local businesses. We know that police are only one part of encouraging neighborhood safety. Oftentimes communication and awareness is another. Just as an example, again, Uptown and the Chamber's partnership with the state's attorney's Community Justice Center. They facilitate ongoing communication through business safety meetings. But would like to know, what do you think are the most pressing safety issues, and what strategies would you implement to build a safer Uptown?
I think the most pressing safety issue, and what I hear about people feeling unsafe now where they didn't feel unsafe before, is a lack of predictability. Property crimes, carjackings, catalytic converter theft, these are all unpredictable things that have happened, and the police aren't doing a good enough job solving crimes. Right now, the case clearance rate is only 25%. This is unacceptable. We need to have a higher detective capacity to increase this case clearance rate. And one of the ways that I would like to look into doing that is starting to use non-sworn personnel. So that's people who've not been through the police academy to pick up some of the responsibilities of the police, like paperwork, traffic enforcement, and allow officers to focus on responding quickly to 911 calls and solving violent crimes. I'm really encouraged by our new ECPS role that's going to be a liaison between the police district and the community. I think that's going to help repair relationships between the community and the police. And I'd like to think about expanding services for a little bit more of a modern time, like adding a text feature to 911. Sometimes you're in a situation and you feel uncomfortable making a call, and having that text option to do so then I think would be a great asset. And then lastly, we need to invest in violence prevention programs. We're very reactionary with what we do right now. I'd like to invest in Communities Partnering for Peace. That's a street intervention program, as well as the Peace Book Ordinance, which is an intervention program driven by young people, and Treatment Not Trauma, thinking about having a different task force of mental health professionals to respond specifically to mental health crises instead of using police for that, and expanding the 988 crisis line.
Thank you very much. Michael?
Well, the problem is there's just not enough police. We need to bring in more police, however we need to do it, it needs to be done. And they have to be police that are trained, respectful to the citizens with no force. I also think we need some more cameras involved. I've talked to the police and they said that some of the cameras that are up and newer cameras that are being installed, they're trying to put them all into one system and it's not working. So I think we need the technology to get all the correct cameras up, and not only that, to have cameras in the alley.
Thank you, Mike. Roushaunda?
Well, you know, I think everything is partly solvable by good jobs, right? The have-nots are going to seek ways to feed their families. We can help them out with that. We can make sure that our board is spotlighting great programs where they can get good jobs. We also need to figure out the breakdown, right? Where are the breakdowns? And as a community, we're gonna have to all be involved. Apprenticeship programs are super important because they triage a lot of young adults into programs where they don't have to carjack. They'll be able to feed themselves and their families. Everyone deserves the right to be safe and sound in their community, and that's what we should all focus on. I think it's also worth looking into a community hotline alert system. And what that would look like is, if you see something odd, then you call a community hotline instead of calling the police. Because it may not be what you think it is, but also it gives attention to the issue. We just need to make sure that we're being considerate to our neighbors. I would love to actually bring back the campaigns, the little signs that we call the police. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I think that that was very helpful in a lot of communities, and I would like to see that come back.
Thank you very much, Roushaunda. Angela?
Yeah, so public safety is really community safety. We deserve to walk around our communities, feel safe shopping at our local grocery stores, taking our babies to the lake. That is community safety. When I'm thinking about what we need as community safety in the 46th Ward, the first thing begins with relationships. We need to make sure that we are having meaningful relationships with the people we are paying to protect and serve us. That means getting out of your car, that means talking to young people, that means going to the high schools and actually volunteering. I had an amazing upbringing with an officer named Officer Foote who would patrol my community, who would actually take us in if we were out past curfew and get us home. He would actually build a relationship with the young people who he served every single day. We need to bring that back. Secondly, we need to make sure that we are properly setting our police officers up for success, because right now they are responding to mental health crises that they are not equipped to handle, nor do they have the knowledge to actually bring resources to the situation. We have an ordinance called Treatment Not Trauma that will send a mental health personnel to the scene of a mental health crisis instead of a police officer. This is something that we have a pilot program going on right here in the 46th Ward, and the research shows that they do not have to use police presence. They are sent out there with resources to housing, to substance abuse, to counselors, to therapists. Last but not least, we also need to make sure that we are engaging with our young people. Our young people have not been invested in the city of Chicago for a very long time, and I'm speaking from experience. They need gainful employment. We have businesses here in the 46th Ward that could benefit from our young people doing apprenticeships and mentorships with them. There are programs at our fingertips to keep us safe. We just have to tap into them.
Thank you, Angela. And Kim?
So public safety involves two things. One, feeling safe in your community, and two, feeling safe in your interactions with police officers. As it comes to feeling safe in the community, there's a lot of things we have to do. Not only do we have to fill the 1,500 vacant positions in the police department, we need more detectives and evidence technicians to actually solve crimes. Currently, the Chicago Police Department shares 2 DNA evidence technicians with the Illinois State Police. So the whole state of Illinois only has 2. It takes up to 2 years to process any sort of DNA evidence from a crime scene. But we can't just talk about policing. We have to talk about the historic disinvestment in communities across Chicago, and we also have to talk about violence prevention programming. The city of Chicago is really good about checking the box when it comes to violence prevention programming, and last year they budgeted $85 million for violence prevention, and they spent 5. There's a complete lack of accountability in this program. We also have to talk, though, about feeling safe with the police. I've been that person to have to call 911 when I need help for my brother who's going through a mental health crisis. And the resources and options available to the police are limited, and they're not trained to deal in these situations. And that's why I would be so excited as Alderwoman to help expand the pilot program that brings mental health professionals to these calls. Oftentimes, the options are so limited, they involve just taking an individual to an emergency room or taking them to jail, because we always have enough money for another bed in a jail and never enough money for long-term care and long-term treatment. And we need to improve that. But we also have to talk about how we're training our officers. We have to improve the training that's being mandated in the consent decree and actually follow the consent decree. But we also have to talk about training for our 911 officers. The tone and tenor of that dispatch call can completely change the severity of the response from a police officer. So we need to make sure that as we talk about training, we're also talking about 911 as well.
Thank you very much. So everyone, we're not done, so don't go running yet. We're switching the format a little bit though. We're calling it the lightning round. And so I need you to get 2-minute little cadence out of your head now, because we're going to talk about, I'd love it to be one-word answers. Realistic, it's probably 1-sentence answers, but less than 10 seconds. And I'll be the buzzer. I'll cut you off. We'll be very fair. Some of these are really fun. Some of these are going to be hard to get done in one word too. Michael, you get to start with this one. And this is certainly one that might be hard. And I will say, if you all answer the same, that's okay. If the question was, who's your favorite moderator that's on the stage right now, and you all answered Matthew, that would be okay. So don't feel like just because someone else took your answer, it's going to be a thing. But so Michael, what's your favorite thing about the 46th Ward?
Oh, I just love the location, being on the lake close to Wrigley Field. When the train system's working, it's great because there's so many accesses to it. But when I moved there 21 years ago, I thought that was
Michael, it's got to be 10 seconds or less. I'm sorry. Roushaunda, you'll be next. We're going to do the same question all the way across.
All of the dogs.
Nice. Angela?
Yeah, I love the Golden House Pancake House right there. That is my spot, and I am biased to GGOs.
Kim?
I love the diversity of the ward and the fact in one block you can explore 5 to 6 different cultures.
And Marianne?
It's all of you, the people.
Good answer. Good answers all around. Roushaunda, we're going to come down to you next. You're going to start this one off. What elected official, and they could be alive or dead, they could be local or national, but what elected official do you most admire? And you got to grab the mic.
Well, I have several, but just for thought, probably Obama.
Nice. Angela?
Yeah, President Jeanette Taylor in the 20th Ward, and past the late great Harold Washington.
Excellent. Kim?
I have a few, but I'd have to say Mike Quigley, because he taught me that you can be a policy nerd and stand up to against corruption in government.
Marianne?
I work for Sherry Brown, who's a Democratic senator from Ohio, and has been a champion for working class people.
Thank you. And Michael?
I don't really have one.
Fair enough. That's all right. There's no wrong answer here, I promise you. The next one's probably a one-word answer, but it might be a hard one-word answer. And Angela, you're going to start for who are you supporting for mayor?
so happy for all of the progressives in the race. I think that this is an amazing time for Chicago politics, and my campaign is supporting Brandon Johnson.
Kim?
I get asked this a lot when I knock on doors, and honestly, I'm undecided.
Okay. Marianne?
I'm supporting Congressman Cherie Garcia.
Michael?
I'm still undecided. I'm reading through the policies and still deciding.
Understood. There's still a lot of time. That's why we're all learning about this stuff. Roushaunda?
I have to see some more debates before I can make a decision.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now on this next one, there's no undecideds allowed, I don't think. But this may be a harder question, and when you look back at your election year campaign, this is going to be the one you say that this really changed it. Chicago hot dog or Chicago deep dish? And Kim, you get to go first.
Deep dish.
Deep dish. Marianne?
Definitely the hot dog.
All right. Michael?
Luminati's.
Roushaunda?
Cheese pizza wrapped around a hot dog.
Angela?
I'm doing a Jake's hot dog.
Excellent. Marianne, this one will be for you first, and I think this is the question that I loved the most when I saw it on the page, which is, if you had to have a running mate for this election, which one of your opponents would you select to run with you? Ooh, I like this. No, you can do the
Angela Clay was so supportive of me in the 2019 runoff, and I was really grateful for her support. I would pick Angela Clay.
Michael?
Well, I've had the most interaction with my little neighbor here, so I...
Roushaunda?
My son.
Do they have to be on the stage?
They do not have to be on the stage. They just have to be running with you. An opponent that's running.
Okay, actually I am. I'm gonna say Marianne.
Okay. And Kim?
I would stand up for workers' right alongside Roushaunda.
And Michael, I think what we'll call the last lightning round question here will be for you. If you could pick a fictional world to be a politician in, so this could be Game of Thrones, this could be Star Wars, you could be working with Leslie Knope down in Pawnee, Indiana with Parks and Rec. Pick a fictional world that you would love to be a politician in. What would that be?
I don't know a lot about the other ones, so I would have to go with Star Wars.
Fair. Roushaunda?
Mickey Mouse.
We'll switch it. Is it Disneyland?
I don't look at a lot of
That's all right, that's all right. Angela?
Hogwarts Nation, Harry Potter.
Kim?
So, fun random fact, in the movie Knife Fight, I am Rob Lowe's arch nemesis political consultant. So my fictional world would be going back to that movie and being able to fight Rob Lowe for politics.
And Marianne?
I would pick Star Trek, but the Next Generation.
Love it, love it. Excellent, excellent answers. For any of you that have never been up on stage being asked stuff that you don't know what's coming at you next, this is a really hard thing to do. But it's so important that our alderperson is able to do that. And so I applaud all of you for doing a wonderful job at answering all these questions. So as we come to a close of this event, we started with the openings going this way from the podium. We'll start with the closings coming back this way. So Michael, you'll start. We're back to the 2-minute time, so don't worry, we're not cutting you off in one sentence. But if you could, give your closing.
Short, don't worry.
Thank you, sir.
In closing, safety, business, and homelessness are some of the hot topics in the ward. I know there are many more that are also need to be addressed. I plan to work closely with council members and the mayor and committee members to find and accomplish necessary goals to make our community better. I think it's important that we all work together to be able to make changes for the better. Thank you, and thank you for coming out on a cold night.
Thank you very much, Michael. Marianne?
since I've made Uptown my home, I have worked to build relationships and fight for our community. We came so close to victory in 2019, only 25 votes away, and I'm back now to finish what we started. There's more work to do, specifically in the areas of public safety, transportation, and housing. If elected, I'll be the first scientist to ever join Chicago City Council. And you might be wondering why that's important. Why should we have scientists in the government? It's not just to serve as advocates for science-based causes like healthcare and the environment. I served with about 30 other scientists as a policy advisor in the Senate, and this is what I learned. We take a pragmatic approach that puts data and shared values over politics. We have zero tolerance for corruption. Transparency, inclusivity, and regular communication are important. It should be easy to understand government-level processes without mystery, secrecy, or surprise. I'll be frequent and consistent in sharing what has the potential to affect our community, making news accessible through multiple mediums, and offering opportunities for feedback. I want to maintain the diversity in our ward, but also go one step further, building bridges between groups that have had historic disagreements and ensuring equitable feedback in decision-making processes. When we celebrate our diversity, it should mean more than observing it in our day-to-day lives. It should mean building relationships, true connections, and community between groups. Our ward has a history of competing priorities, but I believe we do not have to make a choice between maintaining diversity and affordability and advancing economic development. We can make the 46th ward the ward that has it all, and you can have an alderperson who is both brain and heart, experience and passion.
Thank you, Marianne. Kim?
So my team always tells me I'm a little too intense in forums, and it's because we have a lot of serious issues we have to tackle as a city and as a ward. But I want you to know I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful that as a ward and as a city, we can deal with our problems with our social safety net and make it so individuals like my brother have access to the services that he needs. I'm optimistic that we can make our housing more affordable so that my senior neighbors can stay in their home and that others can afford to enter the housing market. I'm very optimistic that we can make it so that people will feel safe walking to Target on a Saturday afternoon. I'm optimistic about all these things, and I also know that as Alderwoman, I can work with you to get all of this done on day one. As I mentioned, I have experience in the public sector, the nonprofit sector, and the private sector. And because I know how to get the job done, I've been endorsed by Governor J.B. Pritzker, U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, Congressman Mike Quigley, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, State Senator Sarah Feigenholz. And these individuals have endorsed me because they know that I have the experience to bring together coalitions of diverse stakeholders to actually bring about change. It is simply not enough in government and in elected office to have really good ideas. You have to have really good ideas and know how to bring about change. I've built coalitions, I've passed legislation, I've written 7 reports on how to restructure and reinvent government at the county level, and I'm going to do the same in the city. I'll be ready on day one to serve you and to build a neighborhood that we all love. I'd be honored to have your vote on February 28th, and no pressure, but February 28th is also my birthday, so I'd really appreciate that birthday present. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Angela?
Yeah, thank you so much for showing out on this brutal night. I truly see how forward our neighborhood is going because of neighbors like you. When I think about what a successful alderperson needs to be, I think about them understanding how critical it is that these policies on a city level positively impact each and every one of us, right? I've been organizing in this community since I was 14 years old. Not out of community service, but because this is my life. This is the lives of a lot of our neighbors right here in this ward. I became the youngest president of Voice of the People, which is a 51-year-old not-for-profit that provides safe, accessible, affordable housing to our neighbors right here. When we are thinking about how we're going to develop and redefine our community, you need someone who has tackled these issues head on, and I've done that. When we are thinking about the longevity of our public schools, as a public school product, I am here to fight on behalf of every single one of those children that we send to our public schools every single day. I've been endorsed by the Chicago Teachers Union because they understand that I am here to fight for not just our teachers, but for the children and for our elders as well. I've also had the privilege of working with some amazing organizations right here in our ward that really get to the heart of impacting our community. I've been endorsed by the Asian American Midwest Progressives. I've been endorsed by One People's Campaign. These are all of the organizations that have been doing the behind the scenes works for our neighbors for decades. I have the experience when it comes down to policy. These policies need to reflect the lives of our neighbors. I am a product, again, of this beautiful community and what it stands on. Making sure that we have accessibility for young people to elevate their lives. Making sure that our elders are here to thrive, and making sure that our businesses are here to thrive as well. So I would truly appreciate your support in just 28 days, y'all.
Thank you, Angela. And Roushaunda, we'll wrap with you.
My experience over the last 30 plus years, has prepared me to represent all people in this ward. Everyone deserves the right to feel safe and sound. We are all in this together, but I will fight exceptionally hard if elected to city council. This ward needs a strong leader, someone that has reasonable expectations of how to get things done. The alderperson should be able to communicate and address the needs of everyone in this ward. I will work hard to make sure that I'm available, that I'm listening with empathy, that I'm doing the things that I've done so many years in the past. I've led legislation where I've watched it go from an issue to an ordinance, to a city law, to a state law. And this is a state law against sexual harassment from guests to hospitality workers. I've been endorsed by my union, Unite Here, the hospitality union. I've also been endorsed by the Chicago Federation of Labor, Anna Valencia, our city clerk, to name a few. I can be the alderman, the strength, the leader that we need to get our ward back on track and to make it a ward that we all are proud of. So I ask you for your support today to make sure that we all have a voice in this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. While I invite Dr. Dan and Sarah to come back up here to greet everybody and thank you for being here, I did promise you earlier, and thank you for being quiet through the questions. We got through so much more than I expected, but I did promise I would have a minute where we could just cheer and hoot and holler and do whatever else. So that's the minute right now. So thanks, everybody. Now I'm about to be outdone by some amazing style, I think.
Before I let him go, please let's give a big round of applause to Matthew Ruffi for moderating today's forum. Thank you so much, Matthew. This forum could not have happened without the generous donation of Dr. Dan Ivankovich, the newest owner of Preston Bradley Center. So I invite him up to the stage just to say a few words. Dr. Dan?
So I got to make the mic a little shorter here. So I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's an honor that Uptown United chose us. We've been owners of the building since the end of October. 6 30-foot dumpsters and a whole lot of elbow grease has made it what it is now, and thank you for being a part of it. I am here. My lovely wife, Dr. Carla Ivankovich, is there. And can you give it up one more time? I am really blown away by these candidates. They're amazing. March and April, we're gonna have open houses and a town hall meeting. My background, I'm a trauma and spine surgeon. My wife is a behavioral therapist. I am personally a kindred spirit with the Dr. Preston Bradley. We want to bring, as a former resident of Uptown, I'm an immigrant, first generation. My family and I came here from the former Yugoslavia, and I spent my formative years in Uptown and Edgewater. We're coming back here primarily to put our programs for health, mental wellness, and cultural enrichment here. And I don't really know exactly what we're gonna do yet. There's a beautiful building, it's majestic, but it needs your input to help us decide. I mean, there's so much I've learned about Uptown. The need for Gen Z, behavioral health and wellness, LGBT issues in health that are not being addressed, homelessness, I mean, you name it. But at the end of the day, we're gonna open up the forums to you, and you're going to give us the feedback that we need to make this something unique. And I very much thank you for the opportunity. It's very humbling to be back in my original home here in Uptown. So thank you very much for your support. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you and making the house rock here at the Preston Bradley Center. Thank you very much.
Someone needs to get a photo of me and him together because I think it's like David and Goliath over here with the height. Just a quick note, we have recorded this, filmed, this wonderful forum, so it will be posted. We will be conducting a separate interview with the same exact questions in the same exact order with Patrick Nagel, who unfortunately had an unmovable conference out of town and so badly wanted to be here, but we will post that interview along with the forum on our website. I'd be remiss if I did not thank the support of Uptown United and Uptown Chambers Board of Directors. So for our board members who are here present, please give a quick wave. I thank you for being here. The guidance is most appreciative. Also, quick shout out to our staff, Mr. Greg Carroll, who's up at the balcony. You know him, he's our Director of Partnership and Events. He was also the lead behind last week's Argyle Lunar New Year. Mr. John Blick, our Director of Business Services, running time and ensuring that we're getting done in a timely manner. Again, thank you, Matthew Ruffi. Uptown United is your neighborhood economic development organization. We're a nonprofit. We provide free services to you, to your businesses. We provide free events and put on events like these. And our Chamber of Commerce, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary on May 7th this year, 100 years of consecutive services to our businesses, is here to serve you. And you can find us at 4619 North Broadway. It is our new storefront. We invite you to walk in, join us. We invite our candidates to stop in, see everything that is happening. It is because you all are here that we love doing our job, because without your support, Uptown could not be the thriving and diverse neighborhood that is embodied within our mission. So thank you all for braving the cold tonight. I am Sarah Wilson, again, Executive Director of Uptown United and Uptown Chamber, and thank you very much. Have a good night.